Hey guys, welcome to the CO visit. Colin here, and of course, always my trusty coffee. Thank you for clicking on this video, and I'm sure you saw the thumbnail and were interested in that. So, once again, another country, this time the Czech Republic, has Watchtower in its sights. And you can almost imagine why. Well, going right to the point, this is about human rights issues. And what's at the forefront is the shunning policy, the shunning practice. And as I mentioned in the community tab, of course, Watchtower is fighting it. Because basically, the government of the Czech Republic has given Watchtower Society an ultimatum. Either you stop this practice as an organization. We're not talking about individual people. We're talking about a mandated practice from an organization, or you lose your registration as a religion and you lose money. They get subsidies, just like in Norway, they get subsidies from the government. So Watchtower is fighting tooth and nail against this. Now, what I want to read you here, the information that I found, very interesting. And this comes from some information from the Czech Republic, from a news outlet. And what I'm going to read, guys, especially those of you out there who are active witnesses, I hope you have enough reasoning power to listen to this and see through it. If you can't see the outright brazen lie in what I'm about to read here and compare, then nothing's going to convince you. But this is a prime example of what I was talking about in my other videos, where it doesn't matter what Watchtower states to the public in the courts. You see, they have a double standard. They're talking about both sides of their mouth. To the court, they portray one thing, one reality, and yet in the congregations, they're practicing another, which is the real reality. So in this case, it says the following. Please listen to this information, guys. It says the Watchtower Society points out that courts have observed that, in fact, nobody can be compelled to associate with persons, including relatives, they no longer want to associate with, and that suspending relationships is a common fact in our societies as a consequence of all sorts of quarrels. Okay, let me read this again. The Watchtower Society points out that courts have observed that, in fact, nobody can be compelled to associate with persons, including relatives, they no longer want to associate with, and that suspending relationships is a common fact in our societies as a consequence of all sorts of quarrels. Oh, okay. Well, if that were the case, if that's what Watchtower was being taken to court over, I would agree. Absolutely. But we all know that this is not the case. They're not being taken to court over each individual person's decision and right to stop associating with somebody or to end a relationship. Of course, everybody has the right to do that. And you can, if you no longer want to be around somebody or have a relationship with somebody, you can separate yourself from that person. That's not the issue. Because what they're saying here is that what? Oh, it's a personal choice. The conscience matter, right? If you decide to stop associating with the person. No, my friends, that's not what we're talking about. You know exactly what goes on inside of the organization, because inside of the organization, suspending such relationships is not a personal choice. It is a procedure, a mandate within the congregation where the body of elders, along with basically the sign off from a circuit overseer, a person is removed from the congregation, disfellowshipped, removed, deleted, whatever you want to say. And then you, as active members, are not allowed to speak with that person. And if you do, you are subject to being also removed. It's punishable. And you might be sitting there at home going, no. Hold on a second. Hold on. This is why you need to do your own research. Now I'm going to read to you, because a long time ago, guys, years ago, I downloaded various versions, since it's being updated all the time because of exactly this kind of stuff. But I have downloaded various versions of the Shepherd the Flock of God manual. So if you don't have it and you haven't read it, then you can't talk. If you do, then I invite you to look at your copy. And this is on page 60 of the Shepherd the Flock of God manual. And this is the 2022 version. On page 60. This is under the chapter that has to do with judicial committees and disfellowshipping. It's all about how judicial committees are set up, what they're supposed to do, what are disfellowshipping offenses, and all of that good stuff. So let me read to you what it says, and then I want you to analyze, compared to what I just read from the news outlet, what Watchtower is claiming in the court, that this is just part of the human experience. It's just part of our society. It's normal. We all cut off relationships. And yet, look what it says here. Well, first of all, this paragraph, subparagraph 9, which talks about brazen conduct and loose conduct. The Greek word translated brazen or loose conduct, aselgia. Strong's Greek dictionary uses very forceful terms to define it. Licentiousness, filthiness, lasciviousness, wantonness. The New Thayer's Greek English lexicon adds to the list unbridled lust, outrageousness, shamelessness, insolence. Another lexicon defines aselgia as conduct that violates all bounds of what is socially acceptable, rather than relating to bad conduct of a somewhat petty or minor nature. Brazen conduct describes acts that reflect an attitude that betrays disrespect, disregard, or even contempt for divine standards, laws, and authority. Therefore, two elements are involved in brazen conduct. Number one, the conduct itself is a serious violation of Jehovah's, in other words, Watchtower's law. And number two, the attitude of the wrongdoer towards God's law is disrespectful, insolent. Pretty strong, huh? Pretty strong words. And it goes on to say, though it is not an exhaustive list, brazen conduct may be involved in the following if the wrongdoer has an insolent, contemptuous attitude made evident by a practice of these things. Number one, and here's the first one right out of the gate. This would be brazen conduct, contemptuous, disrespectful for God's laws. Number one, are you listening, my Jehovah's Witness friends? Willful, continued, unnecessary association with disfellowshipped relatives and non-relatives despite repeated counsel. Now, hold on a second now. Wait a minute now. Let me go back here to what Watchtower is claiming before the court as part of their defense in the Czech Republic. That nobody can be compelled to associate with persons, including relatives, they no longer want to associate with. And that suspending relationships is a common fact in our societies as a consequence of all sorts of quarrels. So my question to you is, Jehovah's Witnesses that are watching this, is the disfellowshipping process a personal process? Is it a personal decision? Are you cutting off ties with relatives and non-relatives because you want to? Or is it because that is what you are taught and that is what you are mandated to do in the congregation? Because it says here that if you do this, if you don't do this, willful and continued unnecessary association with disfellowshipped non-relatives despite repeated counsel. The issue here is, guys, who is doing the disfellowshipping? Who is doing the disfellowshipping? Because who determines, who cares if it's willful, continued, unnecessary, if that's your choice? Because they're saying that this is just a part of society. We can suspend relationships with people at any time we want to. So, vice versa, if I don't want to, that's also my decision, right? Yes, it would be if that were my decision, but it's not, because it is the body of elders who do the disfellowshipping. And once they have made that decision, you cannot associate with that person. Willful, continued, unnecessary association with disfellowship relatives or non-relatives despite repeated counsel can lead you to also be disfellowshipped from the congregation. So that is what the court is not accepting. You see, Watchtower, what they're saying here in this first part to the court is an outright lie. Because they're saying it's each individual person's decision. We don't have anything to do with that. And yet here it is, right here, in writing, on page 60, in the Shepherd the Flock of God manual. This is why they lose in courts. Okay, let's stop the bullshit. Stop the bullshit, Watchtower and Jehovah's Witnesses. You know this is a lie. I know this is a lie. Everybody does, because we were there, we practiced this. Disfellowshipping and the way you treat disfellowship people, according to the congregation, is not your choice. Of course, you always have a choice. You can do whatever you want at the end of the day. However, if you do, you are falling into brazen conduct and loose conduct. You are what? Licentious, filthy, lascivious, wanton, contemptuous, betrays disrespect, disregard. You filthy person, you, if you decide to continue to associate with a disfellowship person. You're filthy. That's what they're saying, and that's what you know is the truth. So how does that make you feel? How does it make you feel seeing and hearing how the Watchtower leadership outright lies to the courts, and now they throw it back on you? They say, well, it's your decision. We don't do anything. We don't say anything. It's not me saying it, guys. I'm just putting this out here. This is in writing. This is what Watchtower has offered as a defense before the government of the Czech Republic. It is a mandated practice So also my question to you is, does a young person, a young girl, a young boy who gets disfellowshipped because they were abused, CSA'd, they were CSA'd by another member of the congregation, and they spoke out about it, they denounced that person, and yet they get disfellowshipped because of that, because maybe there wasn't 2 witnesses or because it got out to the public. So that person is filthy, licentious, lascivious. It's insulting. It's evil. Perverse. Well, that information's out there. What you do with it now is your choice. So are you going to keep your eyes closed? Or are you going to open your eyes? See you in the next CO visit.